Introduction of the kidney. So today we are going to the nephron. As you see in the picture, there is a nephron here. So if you remember the kidney, bean shaped, and the outer layer is cortex, and then so this part is medulla and this part is cortex. So there are two types of nephrons. Now when you say nephron are of two types. Okay, we divide into cortical nephrons and juxta-nephrons, or juxta-medullary nephrons, sorry. So we divide the nephrons into two types, cortical nephrons and juxta-medullary nephrons. So some nephrons are here, and they end up into this part, into the cortical nephron. These nephrons are in the cortex, so we call them cortical nephrons. So 85% of the nephrons, they are cortical nephrons. So most of the nephrons you will find in the cortex. Okay, but some nephrons, they are in the borderline. They start from the borderline between cortex and medulla. So name is juxta-medullary nephrons. Means this is the medulla, so at the border of medulla. So some nephrons are 15% of the nephrons. They are Bowman's capsule. You see, and they will go deep into the medulla. So these are called juxta-medullary nephrons. And there are some here cortical nephrons. As you see in the picture, there are some lying in the cortex. 85% of the nephrons, they are cortical nephrons. 15% are juxta-medullary nephrons. But these juxta-medullary nephrons, why they are so important? Because these juxta-medullary nephrons, they go deep into the medulla. Okay, deep into the medulla, and they help in concentration of urine. We'll discuss that in the next class, but you should just know today that they help in concentration of urine. The urine is concentrated with the help of juxta-medullary nephrons. Like for example, if you are in a hot, humid climate, our body will try to conserve water. It will try to conserve fluid. Okay, so it will that conservation of fluid is by making the urine output less. So urine will be concentrated, means the waste products will go, but the fluid part will be less. So we say it concentrated urine. So that concentrated urine is done by these juxta-medullary nephrons. Okay, so that is done by juxta-medullary nephrons. So nephrons are of two types again, cortical nephrons and juxta-medullary nephrons. Okay, so that is one thing. So let's now study the different parts of the nephrons. So when you say nephrons, we know this is a capsule. We call it the Bowman's capsule, right? We call this as the Bowman's capsule, and the remaining part is called tubules. So this is Bowman's capsule. And the remaining part is called the uriniferous tubules. So when this is tubules, so this tubules is again, this is coiled, and then it becomes straight. So hold this part from here, from the lower part of the Bowman's capsule up to here, we call it the proximal tubule. These are called proximal tubule. They are called proximal tubule. Okay, so this proximal tubule is again, now this part is coiled. So coiled means we call convoluted. Okay, so you can see this is coiled, so we call convoluted. You can see in the picture. So this part is called proximal convoluted tubule, and this part is called proximal straight tubule. Okay, this part is called proximal straight. This part is straight, so it's as for straight. Then as this tube goes down, we say as suddenly this tube becomes very, very thin. Okay, and we call it the loop of Henle. It is called loop of Henle, and it takes a sharp U-turn. So this part is called descending limb. Descending limb of loop of Henle. In the similar pattern, this part is called ascending limb of loop of Henle. Then this loop of Henle will now become, they will become thick. Then they will become thick, but still it is loop of Henle. So this part is called thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. Okay, we say it as a TAL or TAL, thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. Then this will go and we call it a, this part is very important, I will discuss it now, distal tubule. This is called distal tubule. And then they go down, this is called collecting duct, this part is called collecting duct. Okay, please make sure you practice with drawing in your paper, rough paper. Okay, collecting duct, and then finally this is, this that comes out here is urine. Okay, so in this whole nephron, so this is called nephron. Nephron start from Bowman's capsule up to the collecting duct. So what are the four functions of nephron? What are the four functions? Okay, so first thing is that there is filtration. So there is a one function is filtration. Then all these tubes, they are surrounded by the blood vessels. So many things will be here on the way, the all like glucose and some small particles, the necessary things, they will be reabsorbed back. They will be reabsorbed. So one is filtration, second is absorption. Okay. So these are the surrounding capillaries. So there will be some reabsorption. There will be absorption. Second function of nephron is absorption. And on the way, some things, some from the blood also, some waste products like urea, hydrogen ions, acids, they will be secreted. Then when you say secreted, remember when you say secreted, it means it is coming to the tubes. So number 3 function is secretion. Secretion of like acids, potassium ions. These are the, and urea, uric acid. So all these are secreted. Secreted means when we say secretion in kidney, remember on upcoming discussion, secretion means from the blood to the tubes. Absorption means from the tube to the blood. Okay, filtration, absorption, number 3 secretion, and then finally urine is going out. Okay, what we call as excretion. So number 4 function is excretion. So these are the 4 functions of nephron: filtration, absorption, secretions, and excretion. And it comes in MCQ, what are the things that are secreted? Secretion is basically hydrogen ions, acids, potassium ions, urea, uric acid. Okay, so this is the base of basic concept of nephron. So when you understand the kidney disease, you have to understand this concept. Okay, so this is the basic concept of nephron. Now we go to the next level. Okay, so this is the basic concept. This is very simple diagram of a nephron, but you know what is in the books, it is not exactly same like that in the human body. So let's make the nephron little bit more complicated. Okay, okay, I'm wiping it up. So I'm drawing the nephron again. Say here, so Bowman's capsule, then proximal tubule. I'm just making it simple now. Proximal tubule, both convoluted and straight, and then loop of Henle. I'm going this way now. Turn, and then ascending, thick ascending limb of loop of Henle, descending limb of loop of Henle, ascending limb of loop of Henle, and it goes here. It called, when it goes parallel, we call it the distal tubule, and then it called collecting duct. Collecting duct. Okay. Now let's draw the glomerulus. Tuft of capillaries, So blood is flowing in this direction. Okay, this is efferent arteriole, this is efferent arteriole. Efferent means going out, and this is glomerulus, right? So this is where filtration is taking place. Okay, so in reality, this is a very simple nephron with the glomerulus and the efferent and efferent arteriole, right? So in reality, this distal tubule, it goes very close to the efferent arteriole. Okay, very close to the efferent arteriole. So in reality, this distal tubule, let me make it more close. It goes very close. It goes very close. Now, why the nature has made the distal tubule close to efferent arteriole, that is also very enigmatic. Okay. Because here the distal tubule is constantly communicating with the efferent arteriole by the means of some special cells which has been discovered later. Okay, so it has been seen that in this efferent arteriole there are some special extra cells here. There are some extra cells here which are found only in this portion where this distal tubule is very, very close. Okay, please pay attention, and if not, I can repeat also if any doubt. Okay, so there are some special cells that are lying very close to the distal tubules. These are called JG cells. So JG stands for juxta-glomerular. Okay, JG, juxta-glomerular cells. So this juxta means sides. Okay, so there are some special cells lying on this border of the efferent arteriole, right? And it has been seen that in the distal tubule also there are some special cells. So these green cells, they are called macula densa cells. Macula densa cells. Okay. So there are some macula densa cells and there are some JG cells which are constantly in communicating. They are talking to each other. In between also there are some mediators here. So in between there are some mediator cells also, which are called Lessis cells. Lessis cells. These are Lessis cells. So you can see it's a complex. So every time there is something happening here, but the distal tubule is constantly communicating with efferent arteriole. Together, whole of this apparatus is called JG apparatus, Juxta-Glomerular Apparatus. It often comes as a short note where you have to draw this diagram. Okay. So together it called as a Juxta-Glomerular Apparatus. Now, what is the role of the Juxta-Glomerular Apparatus? Why nature has made a Juxta-Glomerular Apparatus with different three kind of special cells here? Okay. So what is the role of it? So these are red are called juxtaglomerular cells. The green, this is called towards the distal tubule, the macula densa cells, and in between mediator they are called Lessis cells. Now what happens? There is a function of kidney that it controls the blood pressure. It controls the blood pressure. Okay. This controlling of blood pressure occurs because of this JG apparatus, juxtaglomerular apparatus, and the whole mechanism is called RAAS system. So we'll discuss the RAAS system today. It's called RAAS system. RAAS means renin, R for renin, and A for angiotensin. Next A for aldosterone, and S for system. Okay. So this whole JG apparatus, it maintains the electrolyte balance, it maintains the fluid, and it also maintains the blood pressure. It has three functions basically. So we'll talk about first RAAS system, Renin-Angiotensin Aldosterone System, that is helps in the maintaining of blood pressure. So let's say a person has something happened that his blood pressure has fallen down. So let's imagine a person's blood pressure has fallen down to say 80/60. Now let's say how this RAAS system acts and how it brings the blood pressure back to normal. Okay, let's say his blood pressure suddenly dropped. Okay. Okay, if you find any problem, any confusion, please let me know. So this person has suddenly he has a blood pressure dropped to 80/60. So blood pressure dropped means in the blood vessel the flow of the blood is less. So you can imagine a hose pipe. you are trying to garden the plants and the pressure is low. So blood is means blood in the hose pipe, your water will come out at a very low pressure. It will come out very slow. It means what? The blood will come out very, very slow. Okay. So when there is a decreased blood flow in the afferent arteriole, okay. So now what will happen? When there is a decreased blood flow in the afferent arteriole, so this JG apparatus will be, this JG cells will be stimulated. Okay. So when there is a decreased blood flow, these JG cells will be stimulated. Now how these are stimulated? Listen, how these are stimulated? When there is a decreased blood flow, when the blood flow is being decreased, means what? This filtration is also decreased. This part is also decreased. Okay. So when the blood flow is decreased, so less filtration is going to the nephrons because flow is decreased because of low pressure. So less filtration is, less filtrate is going. So less fluid is coming. Now what is this fluid contains? Fluid contains sodium chloride basically. So many electrolytes, but we are concerned with sodium and chloride. So less fluid is coming. So less fluid is going this way. Less fluid is moving this way. And less fluid means less sodium chloride. And when less sodium chloride are passing through this distal tubule, these macular denser cells, they can sense this thing. They have a sensor system that they can sense that there is less sodium chloride in my fluid going through it, passing through it. So these macular denser cells, which are stimulated because of low sodium chloride or low flow of fluid through the distal tubule, as a result, these macular denser cells will stimulate these JG cells. It will stimulate the JG cells. Now in the blood, there is already a protein called prorenin. Prorenin. It is already present. Okay. So in the blood, we have already some protein called prorenin. PR. I just write PR. Okay. You know this blood from here, it will go to the veins, efferent arterial vein, renal vein, and inferior vena cava, and back to the heart. We know that. So this prorenin. So when the JG cells will be activated, because by activation by the, how does it activate the JG cells? The JG cells are activated because of the macular denser cells, which communicate with these Lassis cells. Lassis cells will further communicate with JG cells. We don't know the exact mechanism, but because of low sodium chloride, because of the low fluid amount, showing low sodium chloride, JG cells are activated from this side. So it will be activating. So as a result, now these JG cells, what they will do when they are stimulated, they will convert this inactivated prorenin, they will convert this prorenin into a activated form, that is called renin, which is a hormone. It will convert, the JG cells will convert the prorenin into renin. Right? Now this renin is flowing in the blood. Now as a result, renin is flowing in the blood. Now the blood has renin. So when the blood is moving, it will move all around, and when this blood, the same blood that contains renin, when it reaches liver, at one point the blood will reach liver. Blood will reach liver. So along with the blood, renin will also reach liver. So in the liver, renin will convert angiotensinogen, which is in inactivated form, into angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1. So in the blood, this renin hormone will convert, it will stimulate the angiotensinogen in the liver, where in the liver, angiotensinogen is secreted by the liver. So renin will convert this angiotensinogen into angiotensin. It will convert angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. Okay. So this renin will be formed by the kidney. Kidneys form the renin hormone. So renin hormone will go to the liver, and in the liver it will stimulate the angiotensinogen, and this angiotensinogen is an inactivated form, and as a result this inactivated form will form angiotensin 1. Now you know from the liver blood goes out So now angiotensin 1 is running in the blood, right? So angiotensin 1 is running in the blood. So there will be time come that this blood will go to the right side of the heart from the inferior vena cava, okay, and from the right side of the heart it will go to the lungs, okay. So let's see what happens in the lungs. So in the lungs, this angiotensin 1, when it will reach A1, I write it A1. So lungs, in the blood vessels that are present in the lungs, in the vascular endothelial. So this is the blood vessels found in the lungs. So the endothelial cells found in the capillaries of the lungs, particularly in the lungs, they secrete a hormone called Angiotensinogen converting enzyme, ACE enzyme. ACE means A for angiotensin, C for converting, E for enzyme. And this is very, very important. I'll tell you why. Okay. So in the lungs, in our lungs we have lots and lots of these enzymes. Which enzyme? ACE enzyme. ACE means angiotensin converting enzyme. So now when this A1 will reach in the blood of the lungs, this ACE enzyme will convert this A1 into A2, angiotensin 2. It will convert angiotensin 2. Now this angiotensin 2 has a property, it has a special capability that this angiotensin 2, it can constrict the blood vessels. This is a normal blood vessel and it can constrict. It can constrict the blood vessels. So this angiotensin 2 can constrict the blood vessels. Constrict the blood vessels. Now what will happen if the blood vessels are constricted all over our body? So just imagine you are taking a hose pipe, you are gardening the, you are watering the garden and there is no water supply. Suppose the pressure has become very down and your water supply is very less. What will happen? You will make the nozzle or the hose pipe very, very narrow so that water can come out. That's the obvious thing we always do. We try to increase the pressure by narrowing the hose pipe. We will squeeze it and try to increase the pressure. So same thing happens. So when this angiotensin 2 is formed in the lungs, they will now go into the blood and they will constrict the blood vessels. So what will happen when the blood vessel is constricted? It will ultimately what? It will raise the blood pressure. So the blood pressure is raised because of renin-angiotensin mechanism. Okay, that is one thing, but still it's not done. So angiotensin, when it will do angiotensin 2, it can constrict the blood vessels. That is one thing. Another thing that can happen, this angiotensin 2, okay, let me draw here. Now we know in our kidneys, both the kidneys, what is there in the top? There is something called adrenal gland. In both the kidneys, there is something called adrenal gland. Adrenal gland. Okay, let me draw one adrenal gland big size here. This is the adrenal gland where, as its name suggests, adrenal gland means renal means kidney. Over the top of kidney, we have one pair of adrenal gland. So adrenal gland is again divided. This is the outer part is called cortex, inner part is called medulla. So this adrenal cortex, it can secrete a hormone called aldosterone. Aldosterone. So this angiotensin 2, it will first, what will do? It has dual function. It will constrict the blood vessels of our body and increase the blood pressure. Right? Second thing, it can stimulate the adrenal cortex. It can stimulate the adrenal cortex. As a result, lots and lots of aldosterone are secreted. Lots and lots of aldosterone are secreted. Now this increased aldosterone, suddenly in our body, what they can do? They can also constrict, but they have a very important function. That can cause increased sodium and water absorption. Okay, let me draw the nephron again. So this is the nephron, women's capsule, loop of Henle, and this is urine output. So this aldosterone, they will act where? They will act on the collecting duct. They will act on the collecting duct. Okay. So when they act on the collecting duct, as a result, now this is, let's say this is a blood vessel. So as a result, plenty of sodium will be reabsorbed. And what else will be absorbed? Water will be absorbed. Sodium and water will be absorbed. Sodium and water will be absorbed. Why? Because aldosterone can increase sodium and water absorption into the blood vessel from the collecting duct. So there is what is happening? Increased sodium and water reabsorption. So you can imagine now this is the blood vessels. So blood volume has increased from 5 liters. It has become, because of water coming in, blood volume has become from 5 liter to, it may become 6 liter, 7 liter, it depends upon how much it is absorbed. So now blood volume has suddenly increased. So as a result, increased sodium and water reabsorption, as a result, BP will be further increased. Okay. So together we call it the RAAS system, Renin-Angiotensin Aldosterone System. Okay. Now why this is important? Look, whenever our BP falls down, this RAAS system, they activate it. They activate it and they produce angiotensin 2, constrict the blood vessels. At the same time, they produce aldosterone from the adrenal cortex, which increase sodium and water reabsorption. So as a result, sodium and water are reabsorbed in the blood and blood pressure increase. Plus they do one more thing here. Okay, let me finish it. They also secretes potassium. Don't forget that. They secretes potassium. Means potassium is going into the urine. So they secretes potassium. From the blood, potassium is being thrown out, dumped into the urine, and from the tube, sodium and water is being pushed into the blood. So sodium and water absorption and potassium secretion. Now, say you have someone have a high blood pressure. Now what drug we basically give? We give them ACE blocker. Remember that ACE enzyme. We give them ACE blocker in hypertension. Why you give ACE blocker? Because if we can block this enzyme, okay, if we can block this enzyme, vessels will not be constricted. Vessels will remain in relaxed form. So blood pressure will not go high. If you want to hold the blood pressure at certain point, what will you give? You will give ACE blocker drugs like captopril, which are very commonly used antihypertensive drugs. Captopril, you will be asked in pharmacology next year, and enalapril. What are these? They are antihypertensive drugs. They are the drugs that are used for high blood pressure, antihypertensive drugs. So what they do? They block this ACE enzyme. They are also called as ACE blockers. What they do? They are ACE blockers. Means what? ACE blocker means you are stopping the conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. You are blocking this step. Oh no, sorry. You are blocking the angiotensinogen to angiotensin. Yeah, angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. Yes, you are blocking this step. So when you are blocking this step, there will be no angiotensin will be formed. So no constriction of the blood vessels. So BP cannot rise. So you are stopping the increase of BP. So that is one very common thing. And when in the pharmacology you are asked what are the common side effects of ACE blocker. So when you prescribe a ACE blocker, you should know the common side effects. Look, first thing, it's a common sense. You are using a drug that is blocking the enzyme in the lungs. So obviously the most common side effect of any ACE blocker used in antihypertensive patient, they will have a cough. Because you are playing in the lungs. You are giving something that is in the lungs. So they will have cough. Cough is one symptom. Second symptom that is often students miss when they don't know the concept. Look, when you give this drug or when this ACE blocker, ACE enzyme is working, then more and more aldosterone is formed. Because without ACE, angiotensin 2 cannot form aldosterone. So more aldosterone is formed, more potassium is being going into the urine. Right? So if you give ACE blocker, what will happen? What will happen to the potassium? So what will happen to the potassium if you give long-term ACE blocker, one who is getting long-term ACE blocker? What will happen to the potassium? Can you tell me what will happen to the potassium level in the blood? It will increase or decrease? In long term, what will happen? In the blood, normal blood potassium is 5. So potassium in the blood will increase or decrease if you give a ACE blocker drug. Means you are blocking this reaction. You are blocking this reaction, so angiotensin will not be converted to aldosterone. So no aldosterone means no potassium secretion. So potassium will remain in the blood and it will increase, it will pile up, right? So there will be cases of hyperkalemia.